You're listening to The Issues from the Capital Region. In upstate New York, I'm Alicia Purdy. Albany County is starting to look at various ways it'll have to change operations as discussions grow about when and how it will reopen, County Executive Dan McCoy said Thursday. The county is operating at about 50% capacity as part of Governor Cuomo's directive for local governments to use only essential workers during the pandemic. McCoy said he was looking at his options for when the county is given the go-ahead to begin reopening, including possibly splitting county workers into 2 shifts rather than having most workers arrive from 9 to 5. Staggering shifts would limit how many workers are on the job at the same time and allow more spaces to exist between them. Any drastic moves, such as splitting the county workforce into 2 shifts, would raise another series of complications, such as how daycare workers, schools, banks, restaurants, and other businesses operate. McCoy said the county was having discussions with nearby counties on a regional approach. The county will be reaching out to workers in the near future to get an idea of how many workers will need help tackling issues like childcare when those reopening plans are put in place. However, McCoy urged residents to be patient, noting that any plans to reopen were not going to happen anytime soon. The Troy Police Department is warning residents about a phone scam that uses some clever tricks to try and get money from its victims. The department said they received reports earlier in the week of calls being made to residents in an effort to scam them out of money by posing as Troy police officers and demanding that individuals purchase gift cards to post bond in lieu of being arrested on criminal charges. Troy police detectives contacted the scammers and found they were utilizing the real names of Troy police officers in their scamming efforts. The detectives were advised by the scammers to go to a local store and purchase gift cards in the amount of $3,500 to avoid the arrest for an outstanding warrant. Troy police alerted the public that they would never call an individual to coerce them into purchasing gift cards or post money in order to avoid criminal prosecution. Albany police reported a similar incident this week in which scammers contacted victims and pretended to be members of the Albany Police Department. It is unclear if these incidents are connected. The State Board of Elections called off New York's Democratic presidential primary this week, effectively designating former Vice President Joe Biden as the winner of the state's delegates. The board's 2 Democratic commissioners, Douglas Kellner and Andrew Spano, met briefly Monday to approve a resolution eliminating all candidates from the ballot except for Biden, as all other Democrats, including Vermont Senator Bernie Sanders, have suspended their campaigns. The New York primary had been scheduled to take place Tuesday, but was postponed to late June amid efforts to mitigate the spread of the novel coronavirus. State, local, and congressional primaries will continue as scheduled on June 23rd. The decision was quickly rebuked by Sanders supporters who said the move would suppress voters' rights. Former Democratic presidential candidate Andrew Yang filed a lawsuit, essentially noting the same issue. Sanders supporters also noted that the Vermont senator, when dropping out of the race in April, had said he intended to stay on the ballot in remaining primaries to continue gathering delegates and to push the Democratic Party's platform further to the left at the Democratic National Convention in August. New York Assemblyman Phil Steck, a Democrat representing Colony, is a Sanders delegate who endorsed Biden after the Vermont senator dropped out of the race, saying it was a mistake to cancel the primary as it will keep some grassroots Sanders supporters who would otherwise not have a platform from voicing their opinions at the convention. Joseph Henderson, a Sanders delegate from Saranac Lake, said the decision was confusing as the state moves forward with congressional, state, and local primaries. According to Henderson, many local delegates who had spent countless hours collecting signatures in every corner of the state are angry, and there are discussions of a legal challenge. The Republican Party had already decided not to hold a contest, with President Donald Trump as the only candidate in New York. Albany Mayor Kathy Sheehan has asked that people reconsider plans to attend a rally Friday to protest the state's coronavirus quarantine orders. She's also warning city residents to avoid the area around the state capitol. Conservative groups planned the second rally in as many weeks for Friday afternoon in the city of Albany, hoping to pressure Governor Cuomo to lighten restrictions placed on many commercial and social activities. Cuomo announced earlier this week that a drop in coronavirus cases should allow some upstate businesses to reopen by mid-May. Some Albany city residents were caught off guard by last week's protest. Sheehan said she wants to minimize the inconvenience for people who live in the city, avoid people getting hurt, and help keep the coronavirus at bay, although she expressed respect for the constitutional right to protest and empathized with protesters' frustrations. More than a third of the coronavirus deaths have occurred in the state of New York, but protesters say the mandatory shutdown of many businesses is a draconian response that's gravely harmed the economy and upended many lives. Mayor Sheehan said that while the police department is experiencing experienced in handling protests around the Capitol. A protest without a permit, like the one planned for Friday, makes it difficult to coordinate. The city is asking protesters to stay in their cars and follow police commands if given. Additionally, the city is working with the Capital District Transportation Authority to reroute some buses away from the area during the protest. The previous rally, nicknamed Operation Gridlock, was designed to cause a traffic jam around the Capitol building. Hundreds of people attended, some in cars, others standing along Washington Avenue protesting. The protest tied up traffic in the area for hours. As with the previous rally, there are rallies planned for cities across the state on Friday, including Syracuse, Buffalo, Rochester, and New York City. New York's dairy farmers are experiencing major changes in the demand for milk, which has gone down by as much as 10% as schools and restaurants have closed across the state. New York is home to more than 4,000 dairy farms, and although times were tough for farmers before the coronavirus pandemic, it costs more now for dairy farmers to produce milk than it is worth, according to Kendra Lamb. Lamb and her husband run Lamb Farms in Genesee, a dairy farm that has been in her husband's family for 3 generations and houses around 4,000 cows. Lamb says their farm is part of Upstate Farms Cooperative that helps get the milk from their farm in western New York to different markets around the state. While Lamb Farms has not had to dump milk yet, getting milk into the hands of people that need it has not been easy due to safety checks and quality checks to make sure the milk meets appropriate standards. Governor Cuomo announced this week that the state will be launching a Nourish New York initiative that will help get food from upstate farmers to food banks across the state. While specific details have yet to be released, many farmers hope to participate as milk continues to be produced, a process that cannot be stopped, while demand declines and excess goes to waste. Local milk that is produced within the state of New York is sold at grocery stores with a product number that starts with 36, which shoppers can purchase to provide direct support to local dairy farms. The Baseball Hall of Fame announced Wednesday that it's canceling the 2020 induction ceremony due to COVID-19 concerns and is rescheduling those inductions for the weekend of July 23rd to 26, 2021. The disappointing news means that New York Yankee Derek Jeter will have to wait another year for an induction into the Cooperstown main event. Each year, the Baseball Hall of Fame draws tens of thousands of visitors who pour money into the local economy. Cooperstown, like many small towns in the state of New York, relies heavily on the influx of tourist cash and is suffering under heavy travel restrictions and stay-at-home orders in the state, with many businesses closing permanently or suffering heavy financial losses. Jeter, who spent his entire 20-year career with the New York Yankees, was voted into the Hall along with Larry Walker, Ted Simmons, and longtime Players Union Executive Director Marvin Miller. The Baseball Hall of Fame's Class of 2020 will be inducted next year alongside the Class of 2021, with the inductees determined in voting by Baseball Writers Association of America members. State education officials on Thursday moved to cancel the August Regents examinations as the coronavirus pandemic continues to upend the academic calendar. Earlier this month, State Education Department had moved to suspend most year-end examinations, including the June Regents tests. Interim Education Commissioner Shannon Tahoe said in a memo that the uncertainty as to when regular in-school attendance and instruction will be available to resume throughout the state, and whether or not students will be adequately prepared to take the Regents examinations, has made it important that during the time of closure, educators are able to continue to focus their efforts toward local schools and community needs and not have to be concerned about preparing students for state assessments. Schools have been closed in New York since March, and any reopening will likely be tied to when businesses are beginning to return once Governor Cuomo's pause order has been lifted. Niskayuna police are once again giving residents strong warnings to lock doors, garages, and cars and to remove any valuables out of sight as the department investigates what it describes as a very large number of reported thefts from cars and properties in the suburb over the past month. In some cases, people who have left their car doors unlocked or failed to close their garage allowed bandits easy access to their vehicles inside, according to police. Some of the stolen items include cash, credit cards, loose change, bicycles, and other valuables. As part of their ongoing probe, police are viewing home surveillance footage showing one or more suspects wearing hoodies and carrying backpacks. The crimes, which have occurred across the town, are being committed during the overnight hours, according to police. The department is advising homeowners to turn on outside lights and to call 911 if they notice any suspicious activities. State police in Wilton say they have arrested Eugene F. Watchell of Glenville for offenses tied to multiple thefts. Troopers responded to the Walmart on Old Gick Road in Saratoga on Sunday afternoon after it was reported that a man had fled the store with stolen merchandise. Troopers located a vehicle involved in a larceny a short time later. The trooper immediately recognized the driver as a suspect in multiple larcenies that occurred in March of 2020 in Saratoga. Watchell is charged with burglary in the third degree, 3 counts of petit larceny, and 3 counts of criminal possession of a controlled substance, among other charges. Watchell was suspected of stealing over $500 worth of merchandise from Walmart, over $400 worth of merchandise from Target, and close to $200 worth of merchandise from Hannaford. Watchell was also being sought on a burglary charge after it was determined that Hannaford had a standing no trespass order against him specifically. While speaking with the suspect, the trooper also saw drug paraphernalia in the cup holder of his vehicle. A subsequent search revealed that Watchell was in possession of numerous stolen items from area stores. He was also in possession of a small quantity of crack cocaine and drug paraphernalia. Watchell was arraigned by a representative of Wilton Town Court and remanded to Saratoga County Jail without bail. Governor Andrew Cuomo weighed in during his daily briefing earlier this week on if and when the Saratoga racecourse can open, saying it cannot be done unless all neighboring states do it at once. The New York State Racing Association has not yet said what the plans will be for the course, which normally starts its meet in mid-July. Cuomo expressed concern that opening the attraction that would bring people from across the state could overwhelm the region. The governor also threw into question whether the state fair will be open this summer, saying there would most likely not be time to open similar events statewide to allow everyone to fairly participate. Cuomo worried that opening the Saratoga racetrack almost guaranteed that it would experience the highest attendance in the history of the Saratoga racetrack, with people from the entire Northeast region driving up just to get out of the house. While such a move could be a good thing for the economy, Cuomo pointed out that dense population numbers were still a risk factor, making it nearly impossible to impose distancing restrictions on track patrons. He also said such a large event opening will likely have to be coordinated with Connecticut and New Jersey. The New York Racing Association's hope is to open the 40-day Saratoga meet in its entirety, with Saratoga's season scheduled to start on July 16th and run through Labor Day. However, NYRA is prepared to run its meets without fans in attendance. It has worked at Gulfstream Park and Tampa Bay Downs in Florida, as well as at Oaklawn Park in Arkansas. Pat McKenna, the director of communications for NYRA, said in a statement that horse racing is in a unique position as a sport that can be safely staged without attendees. After a month in which the number of traffic citations and arrests have plummeted across the state, New York State troopers have been instructed to resume routine traffic enforcement as of Friday. A memo sent to New York State troopers who patrol the state thruways said the pause was necessary and a precautionary step to ensure the health and safety of the state's police force. However, now that there is additional information known about COVID-19 transmission and the issue of necessary personal protective equipment has been ongoing, police headquarters believes it is now reasonable to resume traffic enforcement initiatives. State police vehicle and traffic citations dropped from over 85,000 last April to just 10,000 in April of 2020. Crashes also declined from a year ago, and the number of arrests fell as well. State police make thousands of arrests annually during routine traffic stops. Many law enforcement agencies have also reported an increase in domestic violence calls during the pandemic. The police memo also noted that there has been an increase of aggressive drivers noted by troopers during the pandemic. It had been apparent for weeks that state police and many local law enforcement agencies had eased their enforcement of vehicle and traffic violations and other minor offenses that resulted in troopers and police officers often stationing their patrol vehicles along roadways but not pulling over speeding vehicles. According to internal sources, the softening of enforcement had also been a result of individual troopers who have discretion on when to issue tickets or make arrests, declining to target doctors, nurses, first responders, and other essential workers who may be driving to or from their jobs. The pause in traffic enforcement had been done in part to protect troopers from being infected with the coronavirus, according to the memo. Troopers have been instructed to continue wearing masks or face coverings when interacting with the public, including during traffic stops. Governor Cuomo said this week that first responders, including police, will be widely tested for antibodies of COVID-19, and he's assured the union that troopers will receive those tests first. The tests are voluntary and will involve having a small amount of blood drawn. Results will be provided to the individual member, not to the police division, and will be available within a week of being tested. More than 90 New York State troopers have tested positive for COVID-19, and roughly 2/3 have returned to duty. Local meat producers have seen an influx of hundreds of new customers recently. With closures earlier in April of mega meat plants in the Midwest, local farmers are turning to places like Locust Grove in Washington County, whose slaughterhouse is booked through December. Farmers are turning away retail customers, locking their doors at one point as people from Glens Falls, Saratoga, and Clifton Park have come looking for beef or pork. Meat farmers across New York are experiencing the same phenomenon, selling out of meat very quickly every day. While the nation isn't running out of beef or pork, spot shortages and some panic buying have developed in recent days among the well-publicized pandemic-related shutdowns of major slaughterhouses in Farm Belt states. While local farmers and processors offer a measure of provision, they can't feed the entire state, and New Yorkers as a whole still rely on the national supply chain. As grocery stores experience meat shortages, New York farmers have noted that, if nothing else, the pandemic highlights the advantages of getting one's food from local sources when possible.
You've been listening to The Issues in and around the Capital Region. In upstate New York, I'm Alicia Purdy.